before we say what we gotta say. I am not gonna be long here today. I'm gonna be honest. I'm very tired. Just came from work, and I don't got the energy to be here for a long time. Either way, I just got a few things I gotta say, and then we'll go from there. Oof. That game was nasty. I ain't even gonna lie. No! I'm sorry, I don't know why I said it like that. Wait. What? I love setting things up early on. It gets me. What was with that delay? Oh man. I have a few things I gotta talk about here. Can't even lie to you. Because, this whole situation was, interesting if I do say so myself. Nothing, too major, though. I don't think it's, something I'd be overly concerned with. But it is relatively concerning. I feel like there should be a level of concern for this. No, we'll just have to wait and see. Alright. Alright, I think I am good to go. And, man, I'm gonna just start firing off here. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, what's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are enjoying your night. We ain't gonna be here long. We just got a few words to really, just few things to discuss, few words to say. Because, what we saw today was, not great. Not great. It is concerning. I will not lie to you. What we saw today is concerning. It is concerning. So, Ravens, obviously, they traveled to Green Bay this week. Well, pretty much at the end of the week. So they traveled to the Packers this week and had a joint practice, which I believe was on Thursday, if I'm correct. Yeah, they had their practice on Thursday. And that practice on Thursday kind of sparked up a whole aspect of concerns for the Ravens flock. From the reports we got from that joint practice, it seemed like the Packers actually got the best of the Ravens there. Not only that, their main reason for getting the best of us in that practice is strictly due to their defensive line absolutely dominating our offensive line. Our offensive line has been a topic of discussion throughout the entirety of training camp. The Ravens chose to go young. They got rid of a bunch of veterans and said, we're going to go young, and we're going to, put our faith in these young guys to be able to produce. And it's led to a very rocky and inconsistent training camp, and rocky and inconsistent at times preseason for the offensive line. No matter what we want to say about the preseason, we do understand that some of these guys that have been out there for the offensive line are legitimate starters for week one. Linderbaum has been hurt for pretty much all of training camp. He obviously hasn't stepped foot on the field. Harbaugh says he believes he'll be ready for week one, and at this point, he has to be ready for week one because of what happened in this game. So we need Linderbaum to be ready for week one. And of course, Ronnie Stanley was not going to touch that field. He's healthy for the first time in 3-4 years. He was not touching that field. So you are missing 40% of your offensive line in these preseason games. But you do still have 3 individuals that are going to take those other 3 spots. Andrew Voorhees, Roger Rosengarten, and of course, Daniel Faalele. Or Ben Cleveland, potentially. But it seems like from what I've been seeing from the the Ravens and how they've been putting Falele in that specific right guard position, it seems like it's his job at this point. So the way the offensive line has performed has been concerning. It started out with that, well, it's been happening throughout training camp, but when they had to face off against another team in the joint practice, the fact that that offensive line got dominated was very, very concerning. And then you get to this game. What's going on, Cameron? My day has been tiring. I was at work for pretty much all of today. I just got home like an hour. No, I got home like an hour and a half ago, so I'm very tired. But obviously we got to talk about this because I was watching the game at work. And, man, I was not liking some of the things I was seeing there. But, the offensive line was getting dominated by the Packers' defensive line in joint practices. And then we come and see this preseason game today, and the offensive line at times was shaky and inconsistent. Now, in terms of this game, I will say it straight up. Voorhees and Rosengarten, again, were solid and consistent. We know they're going to be starters. They're not really much of a concern. Other than the one moment you saw against the Falcons from Voorhees, he's been relatively consistent. Rosengarten hasn't given up a big, he hasn't made a huge mistake like that or given up a big sack or something like that. You haven't seen anything from Rosengarten. He's been really solid. So, he's been very solid. In fact, he's probably been the best out of all the offensive linemen we've seen play in the preseason so far. So we know about Voorhees and we know about Rosengarten, but it's really been Falele. It's really been Falele that's been the topic of concerns. Another thing that's actually been showing up, which Falele played in today. Are you doing this background for this? Yeah, I'm gonna be changing backgrounds constantly throughout the season. I got a green screen now, so might as well use it. But an aspect that the offensive line has been doing throughout training camp, did it in the joint practices, and did it again. They've been doing it all throughout preseason. This offensive line just continues to rack up false start penalties over and over again. The miscommunication that's happening here, which again caused the turnover to happen today, which we will speak about. The miscommunication with the offensive line, the misses, the constant penalties from them, it's concerning. It's very concerning. But here's the thing about the offensive line. I honestly do not know what to make of them. Because again, Linderbaum's not here, and Stanley has not been playing. So those two, they haven't been playing. And then two of the other guys that are going to be starters that have been playing in Voorhees and Rosengarten, they've been solid. I don't have anything bad to say to them. Other than one moment from Voorhees, he's been great. Actually, no, Rosengarten hasn't had any of those moments. So those two are going to be in the starting lineup. It's just the right guard position. That's where the concerns really have. Not to mention, having to watch all of them play together in the offensive line and be able to put it together, we don't know what it's going to look like. So, yeah, the offensive line has definitely been an aspect of concern for, the Ravens flock all throughout training camp. And the joint practice with the Packers only added to that concern, and today further added to some of those concerns. But I don't think that was the worst part. In terms of this game, the offensive line was definitely one of the negatives, but I don't think it was too much of a negative. I think, honestly, that was probably, it's more closer to a positive than a negative for the offensive line. But there is a concern there, especially because we had our backup center. He got hurt in this game. And we don't know if Linderbaum's going to be ready for week 1. Harbaugh says he might. I hope he is. But if Linderbaum's not ready to go, that means Ben Cleveland or Patrick McCarry is going to have to play center against the Chiefs. And that's a complete nightmare for us. But yeah, the offensive line was one of the negative aspects, but I don't think it was too bad. Honestly, we look at the positives and negatives of this game. I would start with the positives. I think you can look at Nate Wiggins and Trenton Simpson again. I really didn't want to see them play in this third preseason game. Like I said, they showed us enough on live game action that they're ready. We've seen enough on the film. We saw the tape of what they've been doing in the preseason. I felt it was enough. They came out there and they continued to ball out, man. Wiggins was still doing well in coverage, man. He was not getting beat. He was keeping up with his guys. Wiggins, honestly, it will probably speak about this. It will probably be a discussion as the 53-man roster comes to fruition and how things are going to go, especially with Harbaugh saying they're looking to use Wiggins a lot more. Honestly, Wiggins needs to play outside corner, bro. I think this is the year you got to really switch Marlon Humphrey to just strictly play in the slot, or at least play a majority of his snaps in the slot. You've got. I would love to see a situation where you've got Wiggins on one side, on the outside as corner, the other side Brandon Stevens and Marlon Humphrey in the slot. That's a perfect aspect there. And you know you're going to use Kyle Hamilton all over the field, so that's another aspect that can add to it. I just like that. So in terms of positivity from this game, Nate Wiggins is still doing his thing. And Trenton Simpson, man, he's just balling out, bro. He had an interception in this game. He was making some great stops. I mean, great tackles, great stops in open space. I mean, Trenton Simpson is looking great through and through. I love everything I've been seeing from Trenton Simpson. Yeah, there's just nothing more to really speak of him. He's been great. Other than that, I believe the and then it's do I want to bring him up? I think I have to because he actually did really well today. He had a lot of tackles. I don't know if he's gonna make the roster, so bringing him up may not mean much if he doesn't make the roster. But Bo Brady. Bo Brady, I believe I'm pronouncing it right. Don't judge me for that. But Bo Brady, he had like 7 or 8 tackles, and like pretty much all of them were solo tackles. I mean, the guy was out there making great tackles in open space. He was looking great. He's been having a pretty solid preseason, and he's been having a pretty solid training camp from what I've been hearing. So, yeah, I hope he's able to make the roster. Yeah, Bo. Yeah, I'm hopeful that he's really it's Bo Braid. That's how they pronounce it. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce a name like that. But yeah, he's been great. He was great today. He was one of the positives we saw from the defense. Hopefully he does make the roster because we could always use that depth, which kind of goes into another aspect that I'll have to talk about here in terms of negative aspects. But yeah, in terms of the positives, Bo, Wiggins, Trent. Bo, Wiggins, Trent Simpson. Those are the 3 I look at the defense and say that was a huge positive here. Offensively, the positive was really just Tyler Wallace. I think it's safe to say Tyler Wallace is going to be on the roster. At worst, he's your wide receiver 4. He might, depending on how things go, he could end up being someone that's going to battle Aguilar for snaps for the most part, because Aguilar is their wide receiver 3, even though he's kind of in our wide receiver 2. He was wide receiver 2 last year because Bateman wasn't really producing and Odell wasn't giving us as much as we wanted. So it ended up being Zay number 1 and Aguilar low-key was number 2. But this year, Zay is obviously going to remain number 1. The Ravens are heavily pushing to have Rashad Bateman be number 2. So we'll see if Bateman can live up to that. And then Aguilar and Wallace will be fighting for that 3 and 4 spot. But Wallace played well. Wallace actually had the only offensive highlight we had in this game because we only scored 7 points. Wallace had a catch-and-run touchdown that went 48 yards. He made Josh Johnson look good because, again, he got open in space. He beat his man, and then he just caught the ball and just picked up so much yak and just ran to the end zone. So Wallace has been great. He's played well in the preseason, so I think it's safe to say he's going to be on the 53-man roster. He'll probably be their wide receiver 4. He's going to make it there for sure. He was great. Wade would have had a touchdown, but due to the penalty, you know how that worked. But again, Wade, he's been great. Wallace has been great. It's going to be very interesting to see how this whole wide receiver depth chart's going to look because you already know the 4. You already know the 4 well, now we know the 4 for the most part, or at least you know the 3. You know it's going to be Zay. You know it's going to be Bateman. You know it's going to be Aguilar. I felt coming into this year was going to be Wallace, number 4, because he's also your return man. So, he's contributing on the offense, and he's a returner. He was probably going to be that wide receiver 4. So I felt like that coming into training camp, and after preseason, I definitely feel Wallace is number 4. So that leaves potentially 1 or 2 spots open, and maybe Wade can get one of those spots. We'll see. Either way, positives offensively, just straight up goes to Tyler Wallace. Josh Johnson, for the time he was in the game, he was solid, but again, I don't feel too comfortable about Josh Johnson being our backup. I mean, I just don't feel like if Lamar was to have to come off the field for some reason to go get checked out or he's cramping up or whatever it is, and Josh Johnson has to come in, I don't feel comfortable about that. I do not. I do not feel comfortable about that at all. Do not feel comfortable about that. So yeah, other than Wallace, there's not much that really can be said for a positive on the field. Other than Owen Wright, which positive turned tragedy, unfortunately, because Wright broke his foot, so he's gonna be out for some time. And now all of a sudden, that running back 3 spot that was most certainly gonna go to Owen is now in vacancy, because you already know Henry's 1. Justice Hill was going to be number 2, and until Keaton Mitchell comes back and takes that rightful number 2 spot, somebody was going to have to hold the fort down at number 3, and Owen was certainly going to win that spot, but unfortunately broke his foot, so now somebody's going to have to take that running back 3 spot, and I don't know who's going to take that spot. So yeah, he was somewhat of a positive in this game, and then he broke his foot, which is so unfortunate. But yeah, other than that, there was not a lot of positives to really look at in this game. There was not a lot of positives to look at in this game. Before I get into the negatives, I'm going to speak. I'm going to take a look at the chat, and then we'll get into some of the negatives here. Yeah, I'm ready for the new season. Should be fun. What are your takeaways from the preseason? Well, stay tuned. I spoke through half of it. I'll continue to speak through the other half, and I'll probably go through the entirety of the preseason. So we'll see about that. Hope your rookies do better than Trey Lance. 5 interceptions. Yeah, he got. Trey Lance got cooked. By the way, shout out to Tony Jefferson, man. He's a veteran at his age, and he had a hell of a game getting a sack. I think he had a strip sack too. He had a sack. He had a fumble. He had a sack, a forced fumble, 2 picks. I mean, the guy was just cooking. Oh my God, Tony Jefferson. Shout out to him, Ravens legend. Who do you think the Ravens' backup quarterback is going to be during the regular season? It's going to be Josh Johnson. It's going to be Josh Johnson. They've already given him the job. They don't even look like they're interested in going out and getting another backup quarterback. It's going to be Josh Johnson, unfortunately. What do you think about the NCAA season opening game? I was unable to watch it. I'll probably check it out later on tonight. But yeah, I was at work. I was unable to watch it. So I don't exactly know what happened in that game. No spoilers, though. I'm probably going to watch it later tonight. Trenton Simpson's a dog. I still ain't know why he was out there. I guess the reps help. Well, I mean, we have a lot. I think our linebackers are injured. I'm not gonna lie. If I remember right, I think we're missing multiple linebackers. So they had to put Simpson out there out of necessity just because they didn't have any other linebackers. I'm pretty sure the only ones they had was like, what was it? Him, Harrison, and who else? They had like 3 linebackers. And obviously you're not putting Roquan Smith out there, so somebody's got to go play. Initially, I was like, just take them off the field, but then I looked at our chart. I'm pretty sure we have a few injured linebackers, so they didn't really have a choice but to play Simpson. Because you're not putting Roquan out there. What do you think of the Thunder? I don't really have an opinion on the Thunder right now. I'm going to be honest. Again, they're a young team. They got to the second round last year, almost beat the Mavericks, lost in 6, unfortunately. I just sit back and say, just keep building. Just keep building. Keep building with SGA. Keep building with Chet. Keep building with, Jalen Williams. You guys got a nice big 3 of young talent. Just keep building. Keep building, keep building, keep building. I think the Thunder will be a better team this year than they are last year. You guys found a way to replicate the exact same scenario you found yourselves in back in the early 2010s when you did have KD, Westbrook, and Harden. Not saying that these 3 are going to turn out like that, but you have a potential. You have the potential to create a really interesting big 3 in OKC that was all drafted together. And if they can continue to develop and take the next step, you guys can be a dangerous team in the Western Conference. So, yeah, I mean, I like them, but I don't have much to say about them right now. I guess Josh Johnson will probably be a backup quarterback during the season, but I don't know. It is what it is. It's going to be Josh Johnson. They're not going to look for anyone else. I'd be shocked if they go get a backup quarterback somewhere else. What do you think about the Thunder? I think they're going to be good. And will my Chiefs three-peat? Probably. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's probably going to happen. Do I want it to be the case? No, I hope the Ravens win the Super Bowl. I'll be here actively rooting for the Ravens and hoping that they get over the hump and win the Super Bowl. But I'll probably beat the Chiefs. Just seems to be their time. It just seems to be a situation where things are just working in their favor. It probably will be the Chiefs unless something happens majorly, which I don't think is going to be the case. So I mean, they'll be in the postseason again this year. We'll see. What are your thoughts about the O-line in terms of the running game? my thoughts about the O-line is so conflicted. I was speaking about it earlier here. Some of you guys are just coming in, so I'll just repeat what I said about the O-line. I don't know how to judge this O-line. I don't know how to judge this O-line. Tyler Linderbaum has been gone for the entirety of training camp. Obviously, he wasn't going to play in the preseason, but he's been gone for damn near the entirety of training camp. Harbaugh says that he's hopeful that Linderbaum will play week 1, and he believes he'll play week 1. But I don't know if that's going to be definite, and we need him out there. If he's not out there, who's going to play center? It's going to be Cleveland, or it's going to be Patrick McCarry. Because guess what? Our backup center got hurt in this game. So you don't have a backup center to take that place for Linderbaum. If he doesn't play week 1, that's a problem. But let's say he does, we don't got to worry about that. So, Linderbaum, he didn't play. Stanley, who's healthy for the first time in 4 years, he hasn't played in the preseason. I don't know what to make of this offensive line. Those two haven't been there. And then we got two guys who we all have said have looked great. They've looked consistent. They've played well. Andrew Voorhees, Roger Rosengard. Both of them have played well and been consistent. So they've looked nice from what we've seen in the preseason. Other than one bad moment for Voorhees, they've looked relatively nice. So that's 4 of the 5 offensive spots. The only real discussion is that right guard spot. And that's been the spot that Faalele's been taking. They haven't even tested Cleveland there. It's clear as day Faalele's going to take that role because they don't trust Cleveland to take that spot. And Faalele has been inconsistent. He's been up and down. He's constantly causing false start penalties or any type of offensive penalty. He's made a lot of good plays, but he's made a lot of bad plays. He's very inconsistent. And if he's inconsistent, it could hurt the offensive line as a whole. But again, we have not gotten to see all 5 of our offensive linemen consistently play well because Linderbaum's been out, and it's just been a mess trying to fit spots there. So I don't know what to make of our O-line. I've seen some good, I've seen some bad. But some of the things that I've seen that have been bad are guys that are not even going to start. Like Jones, I believe the guy that's taking the spot for Stanley, the left tackle Jones. I think they've been moving him around. I think his name's Jones. He hasn't been great, but he's taking Stanley's spot. What am I going to concern myself for? Like, again, I don't know what to say about some of these things because the guys that are in that aren't playing well or haven't looked consistent enough in the offensive line, some of those guys that have looked bad aren't even going to be starting because it's like, one, that's Stanley's spot or that's Linderbaum's spot. So I don't know how the offensive line is going to look. We'll find out week 1. You got Kansas City. You're going to have to deal with Chris Jones. So you'll get a very definitive answer soon. Matter of fact, we'll get a clear answer about what this offensive line is within the first 5 weeks. Because within the first 5 weeks, we got to take on Kansas City. We got to take on Buffalo. We got to take on Dallas. We've got to take on Cincinnati. With 4 of the first 5 games are against those teams. And depending on how you look at the Raiders pass rush, that could also be a problem too. So, however you want to look at it, man, you're going to deal with Von Miller because he's healthy. Now, Von Miller in that Bills defense, you're going to deal with Chris Jones in that Chiefs defense. You're going to deal with Micah Parsons and that Cowboys defense. I don't know what to tell you, man. We're going to get a very clear answer about what this offensive line is made of within the first 5 weeks of the season. If they can't hold up, it's going to show. And if Lamar has to run for his life, it's going to be problematic. But, again, I can't fully assess the offensive line right now because I just don't know what to make of them. We haven't been able to see them all play together. Schedule predictions, I predict the team to probably go 12-5. I had them around 12-5 or 13-4 last year. I said the highest I had them. My ceiling was 13-4. My floor was around 11-6. I picked the middle and said probably 12-5. But there was one game that would kind of determine it, and we ended up winning that game anyway. So it's all cool. But yeah, I have us around 12-5 this year. We'll probably lose a game against each divisional opponent. 1 loss to the Steelers, 1 loss to the Browns, 1 loss to the Bengals. And then the 2 losses, pick your poison between Kansas City, Buffalo, Houston, or Philadelphia. 2 of those losses will be on that list. So 12-5 for us. I'm very excited for the regular season. I'm just ready to get started. I can't wait to see Derrick Henry play for the Ravens. It should be fun. Harbaugh better have a plan. I'm not in the mood to be embarrassed all season. Yeah, I'm sure he has a plan about that offensive line. Again, I don't have a problem. I have no specific concerns about the playmakers. I'm going to be honest. I don't have a concern about the playmakers. I know Lamar's going to be Lamar. Derrick Henry's in the backfield. I have no problem with that. You got Zay Flowers. You got Mark Andrews. You got Isaiah Likely. I don't have any real problems with the playmakers. Obviously, there's questions about Bateman, so that's the only concern you would have. But if Bateman comes along, there's literally no issues with the offense. If Bateman can come alongside Zay Flowers and both of them are producing and both of them are putting pressure on the defense alongside Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely with Derrick Henry in the backfield, there's no concerns with our offense. But again, I don't know what I'm going to get from Bateman, so I can't really put an emphasis on that take. However, I think even if you don't have Bateman producing, the 5 guys that just named are going to be fine. The 5 guys that just named. Lamar's going to be fine. Derrick Henry's going to be fine. Zay Flowers is going to be fine. Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews is going to be fine. So I don't have any real concern about that. I really don't. I really don't have any concerns about that. At least for the most part. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. It really comes down to the offensive line. When you think about Mavs and having Clay now, it gives them an extra shooter that they needed. They were lacking in some three-point shooting. And they have it now. Other than Luke and Kyrie, they were consistently having issues to be able... They had consistent issues with anybody outside those two creating three-point shots. In fact, I believe through the first 3 games of the finals, Luka was the only player on that team that had multiple three-pointers made. Game 4 is when that changed, when it became Luka and Kyrie to have multiple guys to hit multiple threes. It was just nasty. It was nasty. So they needed their three-point shooting. Klay Thompson gives them that. Deshaun Watson's out for the season. What? Deshaun Watson's not out for the season. Deshaun Watson's not out. See, again, I don't even know. Was that... Are you just saying that just to say it, or was there an actual report about that? I don't think Deshaun Watson's out for the season. See, here's the nasty part. Here's the nasty part, because I just opened up Twitter, and what's trending is Achilles. So let me just check that now, because I didn't believe it. And then you said that. I didn't hear any report about that today. I wasn't on my phone like that because I was at work. But like, I'm pretty sure, even if he's dealing with an injury, I don't think he's out for the season. No, I don't hear anything about, other than the topic about Deshaun Watson dealing with some arm soreness, which caused him to not be out there or miss a practice. I don't see anything about him being out, or unless you're predicting that Deshaun Watson will be out for the season. Looks like it's going to be easy 2 wins. No, it's not. Let's not pretend that it's going to be easy 2 wins against the Browns. We lost to the Browns last year because we choked a 14-point lead. That defense is still one of the most ferocious defenses in football, so it's not an easy win. It's the AFC North. There's no such thing as an easy win with the AFC North in this era, even in previous eras. Like, legitimately, the Browns are not a team that's just going to be easy now. That defense is ferocious and tough. It's not going to be easy playing against them. But we'll see. What do you think of trading for DK Metcalf with a couple picks? You keep telling me these things like I would be against that. These are questions you got to ask the Ravens, bro. Every Ravens fan that's been wanting a receiver would be perfectly fine with that. The problem is the Ravens aren't going to do that. Why would I talk about something that I know is not going to happen? Would you like to trade for a top-tier receiver? Of course I would. Would you love to see the Ravens do it? Absolutely. Are they going to do it? No, that's not how they operate. Of course I would want DK Metcalf. There's no point. Guys, we got to stop making these conversations about potential trades for receivers. The Ravens don't do that. Since 96, name me the top-tier receiver they traded for. Since this team has come to Baltimore, since this organization has resurfaced, well, not even resurfaced, has been created, this new organization, because Baltimore Colts left. Since the beginning of the Baltimore Ravens organization in 1996, name me the top-tier receiver this organization is traded for. Why ask questions that we know have a definitive no? Like, why are you asking questions that you know we're not going to get an answer to? Since matter of fact, not even just name me the top-tier receiver they traded for. Name me the top-tier receiver they signed. Who is the top-tier receiver that the Ravens have traded for or signed? I'm not going to talk about this. There's no point because I know the Ravens aren't going to do it. They're never trading for a top-tier receiver. It's not going to happen. DeCosta's not doing that. Eric DeCosta spent his entire time being trained and mentored by Ozzie Newsome. Ozzie never traded for or signed a top-tier receiver. So it makes sense that Eric's going to follow in his predecessor's footsteps. We're not trading for a top-tier receiver. We're not signing a top-tier receiver. Get over it. We got to stop asking these questions. Anytime you throw a trade scenario for a top-tier receiver, Ravens fans are going to say yes. But it's not going to happen. Let's just not. It's not going to happen. What's going on, Jay? Do you see Braun and Steph teaming up? No. I don't see Steph getting traded to the Lakers, and I don't see Braun getting traded to the Warriors. Maybe it's a situation where both their contracts end, and maybe they decide to, but I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see it at all. Wasn't there a report that came out that there was a possibility of LeBron being traded or going to the Warriors, but it was stopped? I feel like there was a discussion about that. Like, legitimately, there was a discussion about that. I know, I feel like there was a discussion about that, but I can't remember. I can't remember. I'm like legitimately looking for this. Nah, I don't see anything that was out there about that. Either way, no, I don't see LeBron and Steph teaming up. I'm gonna be honest, we probably gonna lose both games to the Steelers recently. They have our number for some reason. Everybody does stupid things against them. Well, if we lose both games to the Steelers, I'm gonna make a hot take right now. If we get swept by the Steelers, we're going to get embarrassed in the playoffs again. That's my hot take. If we get swept by the Steelers, that means we haven't changed. We haven't learned our lesson. We haven't changed. We haven't improved on squat. We're the same old team. So this team will fold in the playoffs again. I'm sorry. There's 3 games where I feel the Ravens are truly going to be tested. Week 1 against Kansas City and the 2 Steelers games. Because if we're going to look at the record, the way the Ravens have played against the Kansas City Chiefs and the Pittsburgh Steelers have been unacceptable. It's been pitiful at times. I've watched this defense get embarrassed by Mahomes, and I've watched Lamar and the offense struggle to do anything until they try to do some late hurrah thing when it's too late. They're trying to pull a comeback last second, and then they expect the defense to hold when the defense has been getting cooked by Mahomes. A lot of those games that we lost were close and came down to the wire because we had to pull off a comeback. But then by then, the defense is not going to be able to stop Mahomes because they've been getting cooked towards the end. And then against the Steelers, we do so many stupid, dumb things to hurt ourselves. Lamar doesn't play his best, or when Lamar is playing his best, everybody else wants to play like trash and not catch the football. So again, if we cannot beat Kansas City and we get swept by the Steelers, don't expect a Super Bowl run, because that means this team has not learned their lesson. They're the same squad. They don't improve. They don't change. They don't learn from their past mistakes, and we will probably fold in January. That's my hot take. They get swept by the Steelers this year, don't even talk about Super Bowl, because they'll probably fold the playoffs again. It means they haven't learned their lessons. They're making the same mistakes. What did you get Derrick Henry for? To close out games. We had leads again. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not here to go back into last year. If we get swept by the Steelers this year, the Ravens haven't learned their lesson. They're probably not going to do anything in January. Just prepare for it. So if they haven't learned their lesson, if guys are going to go out there and drop passes again like they did against the Steelers in Week 5 when we should have blown them out, but guys didn't want to catch the balls, if that happens again, they're the same team they were last year in terms of making mistakes. They're not going to Super Bowl. They'll fold in January. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be nice. Yeah, I think a lot of these receivers in this draft is going to be nice. We'll just have to wait and see. What do you think the Ravens' record will be against the AFC North? 3-3. I have us losing a game against the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Browns. So I think it's going to be 3-3 apiece. That's just how I have it for the most part. And I just realized that I've been moving so much, my camera has actually been out of frame. Now, this is the biggest nightmare I have with this green screen, because I actually do not know how to fix this for now. So obviously you can see the green screen behind me, but like trying to get the camera to focus is going to be an actual nightmare. I think it is about time for me to actually like get a new camera. I've been saying it for a while. So I gotta move the green screen. I didn't want to move the green screen, but why not? Because I legitimately, there's a green screen, everybody. If you wanted to see it, there's the green screen. I love it. I actually do have to get a new camera. I legitimately have to get a new camera, specifically because this is a consistent issue with me, and it kind of ruins the overall mojo of how I'm doing things. But while I fix the camera, I will continue to rant about some of the things I was saying. If Baltimore has not learned their lesson and they continue to make the same mistakes that cost them games last year, then at the end of the day, they're not gonna go to the Super Bowl because they're gonna fold in January. It's really fun to have on the live stream. You just have things like this happen just because my camera wants to be terrible. I've had this camera for 5 years now. I think it is time for an upgrade for the most part. But again, if they are making the same mistakes against the Steelers and they haven't learned their lesson yet, what color can I use to fix this? They're still making the same old mistakes, then that means they haven't learned their lesson. And if they haven't learned their lesson, then they're going to lose in January again because it's going to be the same team making the same mistakes over and over and over again. It is what it is. What is your favorite wide receiver for the Ravens? I mean, obviously, it's Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is my favorite. If you're talking about currently, it's Zay Flowers. If we're talking all time, it's probably still Zay Flowers, low-key. I mean, I could show love to Torrey Smith, you know. Obviously, we can show love to Jacoby Jones, RIP, to him. But yeah, I love a lot. Also, can show some love to Steve Smith Sr. because he balled out for the 3 years he was with us. You know, it is what it is. Coaching and GM malpractice. They never should have ditched 2 starting offensive linemen. Man, the Ravens were clear as day in terms of their intentions. They actively wanted to go young. Now, I'm not going to sit there and say it's a bad thing to go young, but I feel like they could have done a better job in investing in those young pieces while still having a backup plan by having veterans. I just don't think... I can understand moving off of... who do we have? Mustafa and stuff like that. I can understand moving off of guys like that. I can understand moving off of Morgan Moses. I understand that. But did you have to move off of Kevin Zeitler? And yeah, Zeitler was showing some regression. We're not going to pretend Zeitler was great. But you didn't have a backup plan there. And good God, this camera is taking 12 years to focus. Yeah, we got to get a new camera. We've absolutely got to get a new camera. I can't have this thing constantly doing this. Like, legitimately can't have this thing constantly doing this. But yeah, it just felt like the Ravens decided to completely dump off the guys they had and just straight up finally takes 12 years to fix. But it just felt like they just decided to move off of their guys so quickly and abruptly instead of just coming up with a plan. Because who are our legitimate backup offensive linemen? What's the backup plan? What's the veteran presence with this offensive line? I legitimately have to ask that. What's the plan? Don't you start this again. I just fixed you. What's the plan? What's the plan? What's the legitimate plan? Oh my God, the camera again. I just fixed you. I just fixed you. I just fixed you. Okay, legitimately, what is the backup plan? What is the backup plan? I don't think they came up with a legitimate backup plan for the offensive line. And now, because they don't have a backup plan, because they don't have the veteran presence, guess what? You've got to work with what you have. So if Rosengart doesn't play well, it is what it is. You'll have to deal with it. If Voorhees doesn't play well, it is what it is. You're going to have to deal with it. If Falele doesn't play well, it is what it is. You're going to have to deal with it. You didn't come up with any legitimate backup plans, so you deal with what you have. And that's kind of just the overall aspect that we got to deal with, unfortunately. So it is what it is. We can't afford a top-tier receiver. We need a top-flight pass rusher. We can never invest into the offense, but we always got to invest into the defense. I love it. Why is it that we can never invest into the offense? This is exactly the type of thing my guys at the lunch break hot take always talk about. We always seem to have the money to invest into these top-tier defensive players. Why can't we have that same money to invest into our offense? Why is it that every single time, yeah, it is time for me to get a new camera. I've had this camera for 5 years. It's time for an upgrade. You know, I might have to get a new camera so I don't have to keep dealing with this focus. But why is it every single time when it comes to spending money, the Ravens are quick to spend money on the defensive player, but they never seem to have the money to spend it for a legit top-tier offensive player? Every time someone says, let's go get a top-tier receiver, hey, man, we don't got the money for a top-tier receiver. But, hey, there's a corner out there that we could, let's go spend all the money for him. We can always have the money to spend for a top-tier defensive player. We never have the money to spend that for a top-tier offensive player. It's always, we can't afford it. So we can't afford a top-tier offensive player, but we can afford a bunch of top-tier defensive players. And it's always got to be towards the defense. And yet, when Lamar's not able to make it work with the weapons you throw at him, all of a sudden we start looking around and saying, hey, we keep losing games we shouldn't be losing. We should be better than this. We should be doing this in the postseason. Guys aren't showing up and making catches. It's not Lamar's fault. It's these guys that can't catch. Well, you didn't invest in guys that can catch the ball consistently. What are you going to do? In 2019, you had all those drop passes in the playoff games. It's not Lamar Jackson's fault. It's these guys dropping passes. You didn't invest in your receiver core. I'm sorry. You get what you pay for. If you sit there and you give him Willie Snead, you give him Chris Moore, you give him Seth Roberts, you're gonna get what you paid for. That's the investment you gave him. If you're gonna sit there and give him an old Dez Bryant, you're gonna get what you paid for. It's what you do. It's an investment. If you're not gonna invest in the receiving core, you're gonna get what you paid for. So I know we can sit back and talk about these receivers dropping passes, but you get what you pay for. Which is why every time we tell this team to get a top-tier receiver, it's like we never have enough. Well, okay, we never have enough. Then when we get into these marquee matchups in crucial situations, and all of a sudden guys are dropping passes and not making great plays, all of a sudden we'll sit there and say, well, these receivers are trash. They're not making plays. They're dropping the ball. You get what you pay for. You didn't invest in that position, so you get what you pay for. The same can be said for this offensive line. You don't have any veterans here for the most part. You didn't really invest into the offensive line. You said we drafted Rosengarten. We had Voorhees from last year. We've had Falele here for the last few years. We're just going to have them play those spots. So whatever comes of that, comes of that. You get what you pay for. So there's nothing that can be said. So this whole we can't afford a top-tier receiver. Yes, we can. Philadelphia is sitting here with freaking Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and they just went and traded for Jahan Dotson. Don't tell me you can't afford a top-tier receiver. Philadelphia is out here pulling out magic tricks with their checkbook. Howie Roseman is coming up with no checks, just money coming out of nowhere to throw all the possible weapons to Jalen Hurts. Don't tell me they can't afford a top-tier receiver. They can. They can make it work. If they wanted to make the money work, they can. They don't want to invest in a position. And so when you don't invest in a position, you get what you pay for. This is what it is. So, better hope Zay Flowers works out and helps us win a Super Bowl before he becomes too expensive. Because once he becomes too expensive, they're not going to pay him. So, be ready for that. But it is what it is, man. It is what it is. At the end of the day, me, personally, in terms of weapons this year, I'm not necessarily worried. Again, I understand there's aspects they invest into. They invest into tight ends, which is why we sit here with Andrews and Likely. I'm fine with Andrews, Likely, and Flowers. If Bateman can come along, that would be great. But again, we got Derrick Henry. We've got Mark Andrews. We've got Isaiah Likely. We've got Zay Flowers. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. If Bateman can come along, then that makes this offense even more lethal. But, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it at the end of the day. You get what you invest into it. So, unless you can be able to hit on your draft picks, unless Baltimore can hit on their draft picks for these offensive playmakers, they're not going to get anything top tier. It is what it is. So, bet hope Zay Flowers does take that next step. It becomes a true top tier number one receiver. Or else, I don't know what else to tell you. You're going to deal with whatever you get from that. But yeah, they can afford a top tier receiver if they wanted to. They just choose not to invest into the position like that. They'd rather try to hit a jackpot in the draft, or they want to try to develop a receiver like Walker. We'll see how that works out for him. And I feel bad for the guy. I feel like Walker feels like the type of player that's not going to really do much for the Ravens, but if he goes somewhere else and gets an opportunity, he'll be able to thrive there. Unfortunately, he's with the Ravens, and I don't know if he's going to be able to do anything. He's already off to an unfortunate start because of his injury. But we'll see how that goes. What's the best division in football besides the AFC North? Probably, coming into this year, you could probably look at the NFC North because of the Packers, the Lions, the Vikings before the injuries. And the Bears could be interesting. So, I mean, the NFC North has a fair case. AFC East. AFC East is fair. Especially if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, because you're going to have the Bills, you're going to have the Dolphins. If Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, you'll at least have the Jets. That's 3 teams. Maybe the NFC West, however you look at it, because Kyler's back, so that should at least help. The Cardinals. The Rams won the playoffs last year. The Niners, the Rams, the Seahawks were also a team in contention for the playoffs, I believe. And yeah, I would say my 3 contenders would be the NFC West, the NFC North, and the AFC East will be my 3 that you can look at. What's going on, Legendary? This year with the not addressing the O-line is equivalent to not addressing the receiving core in 2022. Yep, they didn't do that. It is what it is. Falele looks bad in pass protection, though. Very concerning. Absolutely concerning. And we'll get back to that. I just wanted to look at some of these comments, which been going on for a while. But, this is what I do. Though I can't continue to stay here that long. I'm very tired. But, we'll do what we got to do. Harbaugh is a people pleaser. He never criticizes anybody about anything. I don't expect the coach to go up and start criticizing his players in the press conference. That's not the expectation. Not in this era. I miss that, though. There was so many coaches back in the day growing up that would be willing to criticize their players. I was actually watching one show I really wish they brought back was NFL Top 10, because we had some fun ones, man. We had some fun ones in terms of some coach rages, man. If you go back and look at the NFL Top 10, I'm trying to figure out what was it called? It was like Top 10 coach tirades or something like that. Yep, I found it. I'm not gonna play it, but I love I love it when coaches. I personally love it when coaches can get on your case, man. What Jim Mora with the whole playoffs thing is funny as hell. You got the playoffs one. You got you play to win the game. I love that one. I love the the Bears are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook. I love that one. I love the I won winners. Okay, cannot play with them, cannot win with them, cannot coach with them, can't do it. I want winners. I miss coaches that would just go off on the media. I miss the passion those coaches showed. When their teams lost, they weren't afraid to call it out. We were out here playing like trash, couldn't stop turning the ball over. Oh my God, 5 turnovers. We try to pull off a fake punt from the like it's just, I miss those moments. I legitimately miss those moments with coaches. So with the Harbaugh as a people pleaser, buddy, that's just how coaches are nowadays. You're not gonna get coaches going up and blasting their blasting their players. It's not going to happen. And they're not going to be addressing anything like that to the media. Back in the day, these coaches were doing it, and it was beautiful to see because you knew they were very passionate what they were doing. But you don't see that nowadays. His quarterback could throw 10 picks and fumble 5 times in the game, and he'll be like, I think he played well, and I like what I saw out there. Yeah, it's classic coach talk. That's what coaches are nowadays. They don't really like to air out their grievances towards their players to the media anymore. Back in the day, they were. Growing up in the early 2000s, I saw those coaches actively showcase their frustration and anger. If their quarterback played like trash, they'll call it out. Their quarterback played like trash. Nowadays, coaches don't do that. You won't see a coach actively calling out one of their players to the media. It won't happen. You're not going to see it. Not anymore. All right, the Ravens front office hasn't adjusted to the new look NFL. They think it's the 90s. They've been running things like this since 96. And again, if you ask them, they feel they're doing the right thing because they got 2 championships. So they're not going to change their ways. They feel like they have the formula to win, and they'll stick with it. My problem is during the Lamar era, outside of that 2019 Titans game, the Ravens offense has been abysmal. The Ravens offense has been abysmal. Outside of that, my problem is during the Lamar era, outside of that 2019 Titans game, the Ravens offense has been abysmal. I would disagree. What do you mean abysmal? Abysmal in the playoffs? Because if we're talking about the Ravens offense being abysmal in the playoffs, that's kind of what they've been in entirety throughout the Lamar Jackson era. In the Chargers game, his first ever playoff game, which I personally don't hold that against him. He's the youngest quarterback to ever start in the playoffs in the history of the game. But in that game, that offense looked abysmal until the final 2 drives. And then, 2019 against the Titans, the offense was abysmal. 2020 against the Bills, we had 3 points. That offense was abysmal. Then, of course, the Tyler Huntley game in 2022. The offense wasn't abysmal. They actually played relatively well. And then the fumble happened, and then they lost that game. And then the Texans game last year was the best playoff game this team has played in the Lamar Jackson era. That actually looked like the Ravens team we always saw in the regular season. And then against Kansas City, they were poor. So I don't know if I can say every aspect's been abysmal. If we're just talking about the playoffs, yes. If we're talking about the regular season, no, obviously. They got O-linemen that are good run blockers without even looking at the pass blocking tape and say, yeah, we're good. Welcome to the Ravens. They like to run the football. That's all they focus on. What's going on, Noob? Appreciate you stopping by. How much money does the Ravens cap space? I don't know how much cap space the Ravens have. I think it's like $5 million right now. I don't remember what it is. Likely needs to switch receiver. He's not doing that. Receiver and edge rushers are the 2 positions the Ravens cannot develop. Well, no, they can develop them. It's just once they develop... Well, they can develop edge rusher. It's just that once that edge rusher develops, they don't want to pay them. That's why Judon's not on this team anymore. That's why Zadarius Smith's not on this team anymore. They can somewhat develop edge rushers, but once they become expensive, guess what? The Ravens are like, well, we're defense. Our franchise is built on defense. We've made a bunch of you. We don't need to pay you top-tier money. We'll just create somebody else. They got rid of Zadarius Smith because they didn't want to pay him that money, and they thought Matthew Judon could bring them that production. They found out he can. Then they didn't want to pay Matthew Judon because they felt they can get that somewhere else in someone like an Odafe Owe or somebody like a David Ojabo. Well, not David Ojabo, more so Odafe Owe. Or anybody else on the line. They just look at this and say, we can just continue to create top-tier edge rushers and not pay them top-tier money because defense is our forte. We don't got to pay you that top-tier money. We can just get that production somewhere else. That's kind of how they've been. That's why Zadarius is not here. That's why Judon is not here. It is what it is. Same thing with C.J. Mosley and now Patrick Queen. They felt they didn't need to keep C.J. Mosley because they had a guy in Patrick Queen that they were looking at and said, we could just develop him. And they felt that now with Patrick Queen, they don't need him because they got a guy in Trenton Simpson that they can develop. So they didn't pay Patrick Queen the same way they didn't pay C.J. Mosley. It is what it is. You think the Steelers will be better than last year, or will it be the same old Steelers we always see? That's a very good question because you would think this team would be better this year than last year because you technically got better quarterback play, and all the Steelers really need is better quarterback play, but the Steelers' schedule is harder this year than it is last year. And I don't know if you look at the quarterback play between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and say, oh, that's going to be top tier. Now, I think the Steelers' offense will be a lot more exciting this year than last year. I think they're going to probably have a winning record in the AFC North the way they did last year, but I don't think they're going to be a much better team last year. I think they're going to be right where they were last year, a playoff team. They're probably going to win 9 or 10 games and sneak into the playoffs. I don't expect them to be a contending team now that they have Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. They'll find ways to win 9 to 10 games, no matter who the quarterback is. So I would still probably say same old Steelers. It's just there's more excitement on the offense this year than previous seasons, because now you have a guy in a Justin Fields that can make plays if he's out there, exciting plays, and you have Russell Wilson that is better than anything you've had at the quarterback position over the last 3 years. So it is what it is. What's going on, John? Appreciate you stopping by. Life's been going decent, just living, working, same old, same old. Kyle and Roquan are gonna have to carry the defense. Not gonna lie, I wouldn't really say it's Kyle and Roquan having to carry. Again, there's multiple guys that you can look at here. Matabike obviously has to. First of all, I'll look at it and say in all 3 levels. In terms of the D line, Matabike is gonna have to carry. I will specifically say it. Unless Odafe Owe and David Ojabo. Odafe Owe had 5 sacks last year. If he can get that to near 10. If he gets that to near 10, we have nothing to worry about, because Matabike is going to be balling out this year. He's probably going to carry the D-line. If he can get some help from Odafe Owe, and Odafe Owe goes from 5 sacks to 9 sacks this year, you've got no problem there. If David Ojabo can give you anything this year, alongside Odafe Owe, I don't think you have any problem. So if we're going to talk about people that are going to carry, you can say Matabike carries the D-line, Roquan carries the linebacking core, and Kyle Hamilton carries the secondary. But again, with Kyle Hamilton, he has more to work with there, because he's going to have Marcus Williams. And if, God forbid, we get a Marcus Williams season where he's just healthy, because the 2 years he's been in Baltimore, he hasn't been healthy. Last year, he literally had an injury that he was playing through most of the season through. If we can have a healthy Marcus Williams season, that's going to do so much to help out Kyle Hamilton, who's not going to have to carry. If we can have a healthy Marlon Humphrey season, that will do a lot more. If Nate Wiggins balls out, that can help out. And Brandon Stevens, if he could just replicate what he did last year, we're going to be fine. So hopefully it's not a situation where we're looking at Matabike, Roquan, and Kyle to really carry each aspect of our defense. But, we'll just have to wait and see. Can somebody explain to me why Lear was kept in for 90% of the game and Emery only got 4 minutes in handoffs? Because they drafted Leary and they kind of want to keep him. So they need to see something good from him. But he hasn't been good in either of the last 2 preseason games. He's been terrible. He was terrible today. He was absolutely terrible today. Say what you want about Urban Meyer, but at least you criticize his players when they played poorly. Urban Meyer's probably not someone you want to mention here. Who do you think needs to be the Steelers starting quarterback? Russell Wilson. We were talking about this at work today. Russell Wilson. He's the veteran. He's the guy with more experience. The plan is to have Russell Wilson be the starter, continue to let Justin Fields develop. You let Russell Wilson start as the veteran. Not to mention, Russell Wilson hasn't done anything to lose his job. Russell Wilson has not done anything to lose a starting job. If Justin Fields was blowing it out the park, by all means, he could take that job. But Justin Fields hasn't looked mighty impressive in the preseason. Neither has Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson hasn't done anything to lose that job. So it's still his to keep right now. I say you go with Russell Wilson, you take the veteran presence, you let Justin Fields continue to develop, and you see how the season goes. If you get to the point where you're not seeing anything productive from a Russell Wilson, then yeah, you can feel free to switch to Justin Fields. But I don't think it's time to just throw Justin Fields to the fire week 1 and just say, go get it done. You have a veteran in Russell Wilson. Start off with him for the season. See how that goes. Continue to let Fields develop. And if it comes to a point where you do have to get Fields on the field, then by all means, you go for it. But that's just me. We'll see what Tomlin's going to do. That O-line was inconsistent last year. They played their best game versus the Lions, but they couldn't block the Chargers. Yeah, the offensive line was definitely inconsistent. Obviously, having Ronnie Stanley play bad, which again, according to him, the way he's looked, the way he's felt, and the way he's been in training camp, he's much better than anything he's been the last 2 years. So we'll see. But Ronnie Stanley was poor. Morgan Moses was poor. He was dealing with injuries through and through. Zeitler was fading. Yeah, the offensive line wasn't anything special last year. So obviously it made sense for them to make some changes, but making these changes to young guys with no veteran presence on the offensive line is a very risky decision. And we'll see if it's going to pay off for them. I don't know if it will, but we got to hope for the best. Hold up, I think there's something wrong with your volume. I have my volume all the way up and I still can't bear it. Am I good? Is everyone hearing me for the volume? I don't know if my volume is down or not. I hope it's loud enough for everybody to hear it. I've adjusted it to, I don't want it to be too loud, but I've adjusted it to be relatively loud enough. I hope everyone's able to hear me. I hope it's not too low, but early on, if it was kind of low, it's because I was kind of backed up. If I was trying to fix the lights, or not the lights, the camera, it was a different situation. But hopefully, you guys are able to hear me for the most part. This is Super Bowl or bust. If we don't at least make the Super Bowl, Harbaugh got to go. Harbaugh's not going anywhere. When you keep doing this every year, he's not getting fired. Harbaugh's going to be here until he wants to retire. I'm sorry. He's not going to get fired. PQ was never good. He was a product of play next to Roquan. Before Roquan came, PQ was average at best. Just like Greenlaw is a product of Warner, PQ will bomb for the Steelers. Well, he'll have an opportunity to prove you right or prove you wrong this season with the Steelers. We'll just see how that's going to go. Which team to you look the best in the preseason? Not like the preseason completely matters. Bro, Chicago's looked great. No one's talked about this, but Chicago's been like... I got to look at the 3 games Chicago's played in the preseason. Chicago's just like dominated their teams. In the preseason games, they've you could say they've dominated or they've looked great. I'm watching the 3 preseason. Okay, when they played the Texans, because I believe they played the Hall of Fame game, they won 21-17. That was close, bro. They beat the They beat the Bills 33-6. They beat the Bengals 27-3, and then they beat the Chiefs 34-21. The Bears have been very impressive preseason wise. They've got a lot of depth there, so they're very excited with what this team could be. That's why a lot of people are trying to invest in the Bears, because they believe that if Caleb can legitimately be the guy people expect him to be, and the guy they saw in college at USC, if he could be that guy, Chicago, sky's the limit for them. But they've been very impressive in these preseason games. So I'll look at Chicago and say that. That would be my pick. When Marlowe's contract runs out, we got to let him go. We can't keep these injury-prone players, including Stanley, which you know how I feel about him. I mean, if you want to draft another corner, I mean, again, I don't know what you do. Injuries are going to be a part of the game. If Marlon Humphrey has an all-pro season this year, I don't even know when his contract runs out. So if Marlon Humphrey stays healthy let's say his contract ends in 2 years. If Humphrey stays healthy this year and next year and has at least one all-pro season between this year and next year, do you think the Ravens are going to move off of him? I don't think so. Even with the injury histories, I don't think so. But again, who knows? It depends. If Humphrey continues to get injured, then you have a fair case. But I don't know, man. I don't know. He's dealt with injuries left and right, but he's been able to play. The only time I remember him being knocked out was the 2021 season. But 2022, he had his injuries, but he played. Last year, he didn't start the season, but, because he was dealing with injury. He was coming, he had, foot surgery or something, and then, started after, his first game was against the Steelers, which was a bad performance by him, but it was his first game. And then he just played the rest of the season. So, he's missed time, but he's played a majority of the season over the last 2 years. So, if he can stay healthy this year, that might change the aspect of how people look at him. So, over Harbaugh, I'm so over Harbaugh and EDC, man. They've done nothing but waste Lamar's career thus far. Yet the Ravens subreddit worshipped EDC like he's a god. Again, people are going to make this argument of them wasting Lamar's career because they haven't. We've legitimately seen them not invest in the receiving core in terms of bringing in top-tier guys via trade or free agency. Now, don't get it twisted. The Ravens have invested into the receiving core. They've drafted 4 wide receivers in the first round since Lamar's been here. Or they haven't drafted 4 receivers in the first round. They've drafted, at least 2 or 3 receivers in the first round. Hollywood, Bateman, and Zay are the 3 guys they've drafted in the first round. They've also drafted other receivers too, like Miles Boykin, like Devin Duvernay, and James Prochet. They've drafted, and now you get Tez Walker. They've drafted a bunch of receivers, 3 of them being in the first round. The problem, so they've actually, they have definitely invested in trying to get Lamar a receiver. The problem is the Ravens are so blind that they don't realize that they can't assess talent well, and they certainly don't know how to develop receiver talent. They can't assess wide receiver talent, and they don't know how to develop wide receiver talent. That's been the problem. You have to get a home run hitter that just comes into the game and automatically has those type of skill sets. Hollywood had those type of skill sets. Zay has those type of skill sets. None of them needed development from the Ravens to become what they were. They just bounced on the scene and was immediately that. But guys that needed that time to develop, like a Miles Boykin potentially, like Walker was seeing now, like maybe a Duvernay or maybe a Prochet to be something quality or at least a decent starter, or maybe even Bateman right now, which people are still holding on. In terms of developing, they can't develop receivers. So the Ravens have absolutely invested into that. So anyone that's thinking the Ravens haven't invested into the receiving corps, that's a lie. They have. It's just they've invested through the draft. The problem is they can't draft and assess talent worth a damn, and they certainly can't develop receiver talent. That's been their problem. So that leaves people frustrated. The Ravens only choose to invest in a receiving corps when it comes to the draft. They don't want to invest in the receiving corps when it comes to making trades or signing top quality guys in free agency. They don't want to spend the money. So that's why people will sit back and say they've wasted Lamar's career so far. Defensively, they haven't. He's had a defense that's helped him be put in these positions, but offensively, they haven't given him the tools to succeed. This is probably the first year you could feel like they've actively given him tools to succeed. Because again, you're gonna have Andrews, you're gonna have Likely, you're gonna have Zay Flowers and and Derrick Henry's in the backfield. So it's kind of hard to come into this year and say he doesn't at least have weapons that can help him out. And they invested in those guys, but those guys, in terms of the receivers, they drafted those guys. So again, if the Ravens don't hit a home run via the draft, they're just not going to help Lamar out by signing a top tier receiver. They're not. The best they've given them is an Odell Beckham Jr. that obviously doesn't have much left in the tank. It is what it is. But yeah, I could see the frustration and why people sit back and say EDC hasn't been great and he hasn't done anything there because he hasn't invested in the receiving aspect, and that's the part people really have an issue with. But again, I'm not going to sit back and act like EDC hasn't created a top tier defense damn near every year for us in Lamar Jackson era. He's invested in guys and signed guys that help him for the most part. It's really the offensive side. If there's anything that you can look at EDC and say he hasn't done a good job in investing in, it's the offensive side. And I'll argue Ozzie didn't do the same thing. Ozzie didn't do well on that side either. Ozzie wasn't great at developing the offensive side. He wasn't. Look at the weapons he was. The best I'll give you would be Derek Mason. That's the best I can give you. But when we got Anquan Bolden was heading towards the end of his career. Steve Smith Sr. was heading towards the end of his career. They didn't really invest in the receiving corps like that. Hell, at times, they didn't invest into the offensive line the way they really should have. You were just lucky that you had Yonda for over a decade. But it wasn't the best of investments offensively from Ozzie. And DaCosta is following the exact same situation. They just always invest in the defense. This franchise has been built on defense in the run game. So they don't really look to invest in the offense unless it's dealing with running back. That's why they went out and got a Justin Forsett. That's why they went out. Well, that's why they drafted Ray Rice. That's why when the whole thing happened with Ray Rice and he was gone, they went out and got a Justin Forsett, who had a great year. That's why they went out and got a Mark Ingram. And that's why they got a Derrick Henry now. They'll invest in the run game because that's the identity of the team. But the receiving corps, nah. And sometimes with the offensive line, they'll be very, very poor in investing in that aspect. So, yeah, I can see why people be frustrated with EDC. But, again, he's made a lot of great moves defensively. The problem is people want to see him do that for the offensive side, which he hasn't always done. We've heard the same thing with Ezekiel Elliott for years, saying he's in the best shape of his life and doesn't play well. Well, that's Dallas's problem. We'll see how it works out for them this year. Harbaugh's not in the hot seat, absolutely. I didn't see Lance throw all 5 of those picks. I saw 2 of them because I saw the both picks that were picked off by Tony Jefferson. I saw those plays, but I didn't see all 5 picks. So, we'll see how that goes. Trying to start my own production company, and I'm still writing the script for my first film. Good luck, man. Good luck with that, man. What are they going to lose for giving a first-round pick to Ayuk? Ayuk will be way better than any first-round pick. Buddy, the Niners aren't just acting for a first-round pick. They want a receiver. So they want a receiver or a top-tier player to go alongside a first-round pick. So don't even stop entertaining the thoughts. I don't know why you guys keep entertaining the thoughts that the Ravens are going to make any trade for a top-tier wide receiver. Stop wasting your time. Stop wasting your energy. Stop putting yourself through the same emotional pain that you keep putting yourself in the same traumatic emotional circle that you guys continue to do. They're not going to invest in the top-tier receiver. They're not trading for one. They're not signing one. Let it go. Move on. It's not going to happen. It's not. And when it comes to Brandon Ayuk, it's not just a first round pick. If it was just a first round pick, he would have been in Pittsburgh already. He might have been in Pittsburgh. He could have been in Pittsburgh, Washington, New England, or Cleveland by now if it was just a first round pick. They want more than just the picks. They want a top tier player. So it's Bateman's not enough. Bateman's not enough. Bateman is not enough. Bateman is not enough. Rashad Bateman is not enough for that. According to some of the reports, which again, I don't know how valid they are, when it came to them talking with the Steelers, apparently they wanted George Pickens and a first round pick. And the Steelers said no. They want a top tier receiver. You're not going to trick them with Bateman. Until Bateman puts something legitimate on their resume, you're not going to trick them. The Niners aren't stupid. Y'all keep treating this like it's Madden in 2K. It's not. You can't pull off these type of trades. Good organizations are not going to do dumb things. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, bro. It's not going to happen. Stop wasting time with that. It's not going to happen. Why did we trade Jahan Dotson? Because he doesn't fit. Man, we wasted him. It's all Ron Rivera's fault for wasting that man's talent, and now he doesn't fit into the offense that they're trying to run, and he hasn't had a great training camp. The speculation behind the Commanders trading Dotson is they're trying to create a package to try to go get Brandon Ayuk. That's the speculation, and I think that's probably the case. They're still trying to go after Brandon Ayuk. Since nothing is definitive now, they're going to try to make a late push. I think they got an extra third-round pick they can use in their trade package for negotiation with the Niners. Apparently, another topic that was discussed is that when they talked with the Commanders, they wanted Terry McLaurin. And obviously, we're not giving him up. So the Commanders, it's going to be tough to see if they can pull that off to get Brandon Ayuk. But they traded Dotson because they don't feel he fits in with what they want to do anymore, and they actively want to go after Brandon Ayuk again. So they need the picks. There's always a concern, and the Ravens offense was so used to this. It's always been a concern. Even when they won Super Bowls, it's been a concern. 2000, that offense was not what it needed to be. They went 5-6 games without scoring a touchdown. It was not a good look. Even in 2012, the offense was so inconsistent, up and down. 1 minute you'd see them play well against the Patriots. The next minute they're getting blown out by the Texans and getting destroyed by the Broncos. Yet somehow they won the Super Bowl. Offense has never been great for us. And the years that we have had great offenses, we flamed down the playoffs. So I don't even know what to tell you. I don't even know what to tell you. It's not even about the receivers for me. It's the dismantling of the O-line without a real backup plan. What's good having weapons when Lamar doesn't have time to use them? That, again, is fair. But, again, the offensive line they had last year, they couldn't bring that back. My thing, I agree with you. They didn't have a backup plan. I'm fine with dismantling it. If you saw Morgan Moses at some point he had to go. They brought in Mustafa, he had to go. Zeitler was fading. So I don't mind them deciding to dismantle that O-line because they knew it was time to go. These guys weren't going to last much longer. You were starting to see it. They were not playing well towards the second half of last year. They were just not playing well, and they weren't consistent enough as an offensive line. They weren't. So it made sense to dismantle them, but they didn't have a backup plan. That's my thing. They really just said, let's just rely on our rookies. We'll draft a rookie right tackle. We'll have Voorhees that we drafted last year. Just put him there, and now we'll just have maybe Falele play there. So they don't really have a backup plan for offensive line. And that's where the concern is. So I would agree with you in that aspect and saying dismantling them without having a real backup plan is a problem. So sick of this team blowing out good teams and losing to trash teams. They only play good when they are underdogs because they feel like they're disrespected. Who cares? Dude, that's just the AFC North. The AFC North is a division where they'll play down to their competition and play up to their competition. I don't know why our division's like this, but that's just how it's been. Still believe that Trey Lance could be good. He has upside, I guess. I don't know if he's going to get those opportunities. But we'll have to see. But you have Henry for what? Are you talking about getting a receiver? I mean, that's cool that we have Derrick Henry, but it doesn't mean you wouldn't want to improve your team. If you're talking about the conversation about getting Brandon Ayuk, which we're not going to have, your response being but you have Henry. That's cool that we have Derrick Henry, but Derrick Henry doesn't solve all our problems. Especially with an offensive line like ours that is very questionable. Derrick Henry is not going to solve all of our problems. So It is what it is when it comes to that. Linderbaum's been very injury prone so far throughout his career, and he's by far our best offensive lineman. 2025 draft needs to be all receivers and O linemen, especially O linemen. They're not gonna spend all their picks on receivers and offensive linemen. You know that's not gonna happen. Now maybe they'll use that first round pick on an offensive lineman, but it's not gonna be just all receivers and offensive linemen. That's just not gonna happen. I didn't watch the Ravens game today. What happened? The Ravens didn't look good. They got blown out, which again it's a preseason game. Who cares? But the backups that we have out there didn't play well. So speaking of which, that's a great pivot to some of the negatives because I want to speak about that. Negative aspects because I'm gonna get that out the way. I'm getting ready to head out soon because I've been here for over an hour and I did not want to spend over an hour here. Negative aspect to the game. Our defensive backups, bro, they did not play well. They were getting beat all day. Pepe Williams, bro, burn this film. You were terrible today. And I'm telling you, Pepe will be the first person to tell you he was terrible today. He didn't play his game. He did not play his game. He was getting beat. He just looked a step off and was getting beat everywhere. He got beat for that touchdown. Burn the film. Burn the film. Burn the footage. That this is not a good performance from Pepe. Much of these backups some of these guys are going to be on the roster, they did not play well. So if there's any concerning aspect in that is that if our starters get hurt, we can't fully trust some of these backups to be able to come out here and ball out at a high level. Armour Davis was getting beat at times too, so that's also a concern. So if our secondary suffers major injuries, that's a concern to deal with as well. So that would be a negative. Offensive line, again, I said was a negative. Backup quarterback position, Josh Johnson's going to take it, but I don't fully trust in him. Devin Leary, man, he was awful. People are already saying it's a waste of a draft pick. Emory Jones didn't even have a chance to showcase what he could have done. I doubt he's gonna make this 53-man roster. It's been a mess there. So I would say offensive line, defense as a whole was kind of just poor in this game. Couldn't stop the run again. So if our front seven suffers any major injuries, we're not stopping. Like legit, if there's a reason that there's a reason for like Pierce or Jones to go down, we're in trouble, man. The matter BK's got to miss time. We're certainly cooked on that D line because these backups are poor. Today they couldn't stop the run, they couldn't stop the pass. So pass coverage was weak, run defense was weak. Again, other than Trenton Simpson, other than Bo, other than Wiggins, no one else was really doing much out there, and people were constantly getting beaten coverage, constantly getting beat over the middle of the field, constantly giving a big run. So the defense as a whole had a poor performance. That would be a whole negative. And again, the offensive line was shaky. Falele, again, so inconsistent in pass protection. It's just frustrating. These guys can run block, so that's decent, but pass protection, my God, they struggle with that, and that's a problem. So those are pretty much my negatives. And those definitely bring concerns. I'm getting ready to head out of here, but I do want to finish up some of these questions and comments here. Linderbaum, yeah, he's been injury prone in some cases. Is what it is. Well, basically, the Tides with an MVP quarterback. Some cases yes, some cases no. I don't know what this team's obsession with Falele. He's legit trash, and the coaches are too blind to see it. I don't think they have anyone else to put there. The only other person is Ben Cleveland, and they don't believe in Ben Cleveland. I don't know what to tell you. I've said this. The Ravens are a team that loves to try to prop up their players, but you can see their intentions by their decisions. They can prop up Ben Cleveland all they want. They don't believe in that guy. And the fact that they don't even test him at right guard tells you they don't believe in that guy. The fact that Falele's been playing right guard the entire preseason, and we've seen Ben Cleveland either play center or not even be on the field, tells you they don't believe in Ben Cleveland. They don't. So if Ben Cleveland's not going to take that right guard spot, it's only going to go to Falele by default. And they haven't gone and gotten anyone else to take that spot. They've got no veterans, so that's why. So I don't know if it's a situation where they're obsessed with Falele. I think it's more of a situation where they don't have a choice but to play him because they don't believe in Ben Cleveland at all. And it's clear as day. Ravens make these brain-dead draft picks like Leary and Stout a few years ago, and Ben Mason, a fullback in the 5th round. Like, they waste some of these later-round picks. At the end of the day, these late-round picks aren't expected to make a huge impact on the team. So, I mean, I don't mind it for the most part, but, especially because the Ravens' luck with late round picks doesn't always work out for them. So, I don't mind it, but sometimes I wish they would just pick a player that can actually be beneficial as opposed to trying to go with, oh, well, we feel it's the best player we can get. Like, I don't need to see them draft a quarterback. We don't need that. We don't. You could just go pick up any one of these veteran quarterbacks and have them be a backup. Sims is a dog. Only the positive defense. The only positive on defense besides Wiggins so far this preseason. You're right. You're right about that. Anyway, guys, I am going to end things here because I'm tired. I came from work and I didn't expect to be here for an hour and a half. But apparently, we've been here for, nearly an hour and a half. So, yeah, I'm going to cut it here. Yeah, we'll keep talking about this, especially because the Ravens are going to be on the clock. I'm pretty sure the due date or the expiration date in terms of, not the expiration, the deadline, that's the right word to use. The deadline for their 53-man roster is coming up soon, so they got to decide who's going to be on this roster. So we'll see who's going to be here, who's not. We'll see what the official depth chart's going to look like, and we'll just go from there. But yeah, this preseason was concerning because it looks like our depth isn't there to the highest extent. And that's a problem. And the offensive line still has a bunch of question marks. And I don't know if we're going to get those answers anytime before the first game against Kansas City Thursday Night Football. So we'll just have to wait and see how things go. This could either be a home run for us, or it could be an early disaster that we're going to have to deal with throughout the entire season. We'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you tuning in for this stream. I ain't really been streaming like that lately. It is what it is. Get used to it. I ain't going to be streaming that much this season. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just not going to be streaming that much this season. It is what it is. Yeah, I've been playing college football 25. It's been pretty good. In fact, I might get on the game a little bit later tonight. Who knows? Anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys for stopping by the stream. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate y'all in the chat. And yeah, we'll be back talking about some more Ravens football because the preseason's over. The NFL season starts in less than 2 weeks. We start things off Thursday Night Football in Kansas City to kick off the NFL season. So we got to do everything in our power to get ready. And obviously us as Ravens Flocks, we're going to be covering it and talking about it and discussing it. So yeah, we'll see how things go. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for pulling up. And you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Take care. Stay safe. And I'm out of here, man. Peace out.